You know how sometimes there's a single memory from your childhood that just sticks with you? One little thing that ends up coloring how you see everything else? Well, for the amazing writer Caitlin Greenidge, a memory just like that didn't just shape her perspective, it became the bedrock of her entire artistic career. So let's get into it.
At the very heart of this whole thing is this really powerful symbol. We're talking about a small, simple garden that Greenidge's mother planted right outside their public housing building. And it was so much more than just a bunch of flowers. For them, it was a way of holding on to their dignity, a symbol of hope, and a tangible link to the life they had before things got tough.
And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? I mean, how can a tiny patch of dirt end up fueling the themes and stories of these huge, celebrated novels? It sounds kind of wild, but to really get Caitlin Greenidge's work, we have to start right there, with that garden.
All right, so let's dig into the story itself, which Greenidge tells in her incredible essay, My Mother's Garden. And just so we're clear, this isn't just some interesting backstory. This is the core metaphor for everything that comes after.
Okay, so here's how it all went down. It begins with her mom, literally planting hope in the ground. That garden becomes this beautiful symbol of their dignity, a connection to who they were. But then the system pushes back. The housing authority just sees an unsanctioned garden. They don't see the meaning. And then the final step. They destroy it with chemicals. For a young Caitlin Greenidge, that wasn't just about losing some flowers. It was this deep, early lesson in how impersonal systems can just crush creativity and spirit.
Right. So this whole thing with the garden, it didn't just happen in a bubble. It was actually part of a much bigger story. The story of Greenidge growing up and trying to navigate two completely different worlds. And that journey is what would ultimately forge her incredibly unique voice as a writer.
So here's a little background. She was born in Boston and raised by her mom, a social worker. They dealt with some serious financial struggles. At the very same time, though, she gets a scholarship to go to this predominantly white, pretty elite prep school. I mean, you can already feel the tension there, can't you?
And wow, this slide really just lays it all out. On one side, you have her actual life, living in public housing, where an issue like poverty wasn't a debate topic. It was personal. It was real. Then, on the other side, you've got her school, where those exact same issues were treated like these abstract concepts you could debate from a distance. And the big ideal there was this thing they called objectivity. So you can imagine jumping between these two realities all the time. It created this huge internal conflict. But here's the thing, it was right in the middle of that conflict that her mission as a storyteller was born. It became a fight for a different kind of truth, one that was more authentic and had room for everyone's reality.
Let's just zero in on that idea of objectivity for a sec. At her school, it meant you talked about big social problems without any personal feelings, from a detached scholarly distance. But for Greenidge, whose life was those issues, that felt like a total erasure of her reality. I mean, how are you supposed to be objective about your own life?
And this is the key takeaway, really. That constant tension wasn't just frustrating for her, it actually became the lens through which she saw everything. It forced her to think really hard about power and about stories. Who gets to decide which stories are valid, and whose experience gets dismissed because it's too personal or not objective enough.
And that experience started sparking these really crucial questions in her mind. Questions that drive all of her work today. Who gets to speak? Whose experiences are actually valued by society? And she realized something profound. Stories have the power to erase truth, but they also have the power to reveal it. And she decided her life's work would be all about revealing.
Okay, so now let's connect all the dots. How do you get from a childhood memory of a destroyed garden and living in two worlds, all the way to writing award-winning fiction? Let's take a look.
Take her debut novel, We Love You, Charlie Freeman. It dives headfirst into all of this. It's a book that wrestles with what it means to belong, with race, with the messiness and complexity of family. These are all questions that grew directly out of her own life, trying to find her place in these very different, clashing worlds.
And then you have her historical novel, Liberty, where she takes on history itself. This is her mission in action. She's actively giving a voice to Black women whose stories and experiences have been pushed to the margins or just totally ignored by the official historical accounts. It's like she's planting a new garden in the parts of history that have been left barren for way too long.
So you see, there's this really clear, direct line here. Every single one of those lessons from her childhood, the fight to have a voice, the search for what's true, the questioning of whose history gets to be told, it all just echoes so powerfully throughout everything she writes.
All right, let's pull all this together now. When you read Caitlin Greenidge, what you're really seeing is the beautiful result of all these different threads weaving together. The garden, the two worlds, and that fight for a personal, lived truth.
So when you really break it down, her entire vision is built on these powerful pillars. Those vivid childhood memories, like the garden. The constant, draining pressure of trying to fit into different worlds. The quiet, incredible strength of her mother. And this profound idea that even a small act of creativity can be a massive act of resistance.
At the end of the day, it all boils down to this one simple but really powerful truth. For Caitlin Greenidge, her personal history isn't just some trivia in her biography. It is the engine of her art. Her life and her work are completely, beautifully woven together. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought. For you, what about your life? What's that small memory, that seemingly minor event from your past? What's your garden that has quietly but powerfully shaped the way you see and move through the world today?